damn thing. Okay, to this computer. So this is the second symposium, and it is what? What is the date? The 30th. Oh yeah, right. Oh my God, it's the 30th. I'm still in the 20s of October 2020. So today, our topic is the inner map. And thanks for coming, everybody. And now I will tell you the book that I have in my hand, because this is what I've been reading the last couple of days. Can you read that? Come as you are. Oops, there we go. Come as you are. So it's a book all about female sexual responsiveness. Very great book. Really easy to read, sciencey, but anecdotal, but just the kind of book I love, because it allows me to get the information. They put it on all sides of my brain and all that stuff. The reason I'm showing it to you is because she's talking a lot about basically how to create a context where you want to be sexual, like your body is ready, available for being sexual. And she has a whole part about this, it's part in her book about clearing out, she calls it clearing out the stress response. And doing the whole cycle. She talks about getting through the whole cycle of a stress response. Oh, AKA reactive brain, AKA emotional reactivity, that it's not enough to feel fight, flight, freeze. We need to move it out of your body so that you can come back to, it's the stuff we do. So it's really fun to see it in this context and see somebody carrying it out, because I think she's got a really great following. So her name is Nagoski, Nagoski, Emily Nagoski. Yeah. So, and
Audible.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
right.
Awesome.
Great. You could be listening to it right now. So the internet. So trying to span everything of what each of you might most want to learn today, and also with an intention of shortening the class today. So we can lengthen a different class if we want later. So I just want to kind of tune into what would be most useful. So I'm going to give you kind of my lowdown of why I think this is useful. Oh, and I'm going to just read you this text that I just got, like right before the call, because I can do it on my phone. I can actually read it. And somebody who's saying, so this is cool. No, not from Warren. Darn it. Oh, it was an email. Hang on. The name works with somebody that I know. Julie Munson shared your work with me several years ago. The inner map has been a guiding light for me and my husband and our 3 boys. It has not only influenced my role as a mom, a wife, a stepsister, a daughter, but also as a practitioner. I use the inner map all the time with my patients. I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner. So that's cool. And she's launching a website. Like there's something about this way of seeing things, I think, that is accessible for folks. And it's also, as we play with this, just looking at the map is signaling the brain already to start to shift. So that noticing shift move, this is a way to smuggle in shift moves. Just saying, where am I on the inner map, is already triggering a part of the brain that is saying, oh, okay, I'm going to get out of the reactivity. I'm going to get out of the unconscious swirl. So it's a cool thing to just be able to have it around. Even so, me having these books, I used to say this about the BC3, me just walking into the BC3 was a shift move. Me just seeing the cover is like, where am I on the, so the cue to be actually noticing what's really going on. And somebody texted me, and now I'm going to see why, because I'm nervous somebody else can't get on. Yep. From Shannon. So I'm going to text her. Can somebody text her? Well, I guess I should do it from my, you could. Do you have the Zoom link? Thank you. Okay, brilliant. Appreciate that. Need a co-pilot for these calls. Yeah, so using the inner map. And then so a little more intro to this This is based on David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force. So I really want to give him full credos for that, full, I mean, this was brilliant. And this is his creation. It is me learning from him. And so I want you to go for the source and to the source. And as much as possible, if you can read his stuff, get the origin of it, I would highly recommend that. So to do your best to get through, it's that second chapter of Power versus Force. We could all read it together sometime, but to kind of do what you can to kind of make your way, because once you get past that part, which I think is dense and sort of hard to understand, then you will be kind of home free for the rest of the book, and it will start to make more and more sense to you. So there are a couple of things that happened for me at the same time where I came up with this idea of having the map. One was stumbling on his book. I can still remember I think it was at the current Barnes and Noble. There were stacks of these books, stacks of these Power versus Force. Like, what is this? I don't know how many years ago, maybe 20 years ago. So kind of trying to understand, like, what is he talking about? And getting really intrigued. I also ran into this book, that another one I highly recommend. I don't have it at home. I've talked about it before, so some of you have already maybe read it, called A General Theory of Love. Great book, written by 3 psychiatrists. It's got this combination of being poetry and science that is just so yummy. There was one chapter on memory that was sloggy that I remember, so I don't want to overtell this. But at the time, so what stopped me short about their book was they started talking about despair. Now, I know despair. You all probably know despair. We know despair. But I thought it was a philosophical issue. I thought it was just me having hit existentialism at 16 because they taught it in English at the wrong time. And then suddenly, like, what a mean thing to do to a 16-year-old. There is no point. That's what I remember. There's no point. Oh, what? And in the turmoil of my family, that was like, oh, there's no point. And so it took me straight down and under, hi, Shannon, into despair. But what I didn't know, and it took me, another 25 years to find out, was that was an actual physiological response. It wasn't just mind-driven. So it couldn't be mind-solved. I couldn't solve my despair by reading another book saying, no, actually there is a point. I mean, I tried it. I tried those books, and it just, then I would come back to the place, and then I just figured, oh, well, there was something wrong with me. I mean, that was easy to go there, just kind of fit all together. So this chapter says, actually, despair hits any mammal who is removed from their mom, basically, but their main caretaker. That's what happens. It's a physiological experience. So that was hugely eye-opening to me, and so affirming to think, oh, this is just my body taking care of itself. It wasn't that there was that I had some mental illness, which is what I figured. So then that was a whole, like, well, if that's true about me, what about everybody else?
Wait, can you say that, Julie, can you say that again slowly? Like, so despair happens to any mammal?
Yes. Any mammal who's removed from their love object. Yes. This would be the moment where I'd be showing you the monkey picture, but I don't have it because I didn't think about it yet, or earlier, that is relevant. So the monkey picture, which is, some of you can see, look at the ones who have seen it. You've seen the monkey picture, and it's rather horrifying, right? It just goes straight to your heart. So imagine this, a black and white photo. It was taken probably in 1952 because they could do this. There's the Harlow monkey studies.
Yeah, that experiment, yeah.
Mm-hmm, they could do that then. Remove, and I don't know, maybe people still do these horrors, but so the whole thing is removing the monkey from its mother and then putting it with a wire, monkey looking wire thing that had food coming from it, the milk, or a warm, cuddly wire thing. So those were the experiments, and the monkey went to the warm, cuddly thing over the food. So, but what it showed was this monkey all curled up at the bottom of its cage, because this was a monkey in despair, the monkey that had basically given up hope. And that's what every mammal does. And then there's this cascade of physiological effects of doing that, of giving up hope, because basically when you go into despair, you're shutting down. You're preparing for death. You're shutting down because it's too hard. And I'll just bring up the inner map now, make it a little more relevant. Hi, Shannon, glad you're here. So I'm going to share my screen and bring up the map if I can see it, because it's probably behind the other stuff. There it is. Nope, you don't want that. That's my email. Yeah, maybe you do. Let's see my email. All right, let's see, where did it go? Hang on while I do my techno nut. Okay, there we go. Can you see that? Anybody that cannot see the map? Yes, you can see it? No? It'd be probably easier to see it better, huh?
Yes, I can see it, Julie, just fine.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Jamie. So see where despair is. We're down here. Okay, so to keep track of the whole map, and Jamie, I've jumped in without you understanding that the way this map works, it goes from the most contracted states, the most frozen states, the most unmoving states, because there's death. Death has zero movement. That's how we know something's dead. But then shame is just one step up from death, basically, because there's still very little energy in shame. We're very frozen, shut down. There's a little more in guilt. And now we get up to despair. So to see where it is, it's this little monkey has given up. It's pulled in, it's withdrawn, because look, if it was in sadness before it got to despair, it was still crying. Even doing this, I feel my heart is wrenched. It was still crying, oh, where's my mother? Doing the crying noises that mammals do, trying to get someone to respond. That's what crying is for. There's a function of sadness. We cry because we're trying to draw a response. We're trying to be taken care of. But at some point that is costly. And so then we go into despair because it's less costly. It's energetically, we don't have the energy to keep that going. So that was my step into the sort of trying to figure this out, and then starting to see how Hawkins laid it out. So for him, okay, so looking at this vertical line, he just randomly said, this is zero movement up to 1,000 is actually above peace for him. He just laid it out that way. He said, I'm just going to have a scale 0 to 1,000. It could have been 0 to 10. He just decided on that. What he did, this Harvard-trained, very famous, very reputable psychiatrist, he went around and he kind of fell into muscle testing, kinesiology, which we're not going to go into today. But so he decided, and I think it makes sense to me, that muscle testing actually is an accurate and scientific way of testing whether something is true or not. So he went around to these huge audiences and he would have people muscle test each of these states. He had different names for some of these, but just they would muscle test fear or muscle test pride. And then he set that up along accordingly. And he would say to them, okay, so what number on 0 to 1,000, where does fear land? On 0 to 1,000, where does shame land? Where does love land? This is what he was doing with all of these people. They're all muscle testing. It's really interesting. Anyway, it's fun to, I went and saw him one time. He's dead now, but a very sort of eccentric guy that made a lot of sense to me. So that's how these states got lined up, was according to their muscle testing. He also decided at the time, and I'm not actually sure why, but that there was clearly a difference between this stuff below the line and this stuff above the line. So he called that, because his book's called Power versus Force. And that's partly what got me into his work, was because I've just always been interested. Well, I know there's a difference. Real power doesn't feel like force to me. I know there's something different. And so for it to see it, he called it, the subtitle is Hidden Determinants. Hidden determinants of something. I can't get the whole subtitle. So this is hidden. This is a hidden determinant of humanity. Like, this is going on all the time, all the time. So we are either in reactive brain or we are in creative brain. And then, so within reactive brain, right? So that's what he did. He stacked these up according to how much energy there was. And he said, you get above the line, you get into power for him, into creative brain is how I see it. You're in a different field of energy, basically. In reactive brain, you are in a field of resistance. You get in creative brain, there's no resistance in that. Like, energetically, you are in flow. Like, the resistance leaves, because in reactive brain, I'm pushing, you're pushing back. What the hell were you thinking? I say angrily, and you say, well, you suck, you say angrily, and we're pushing back. But even if I say, what the hell were you thinking? And you go, oh, I know, I feel terrible. I'm still pushing against you. And you've just gone sort of dead. You've gone submissive. It's sort of like pushing you around. There's no energy there. There's no you there anymore. So we've lost all the stuff from reactive brain. We've lost connection with ourselves. We've lost connection with each other, because we have to. Reactive brain is designed to be an emergency response. That's what it's for. And it's great at it. It's to get us to jump out of the way of the bus. It's to get us to run away. It's to get us to stop because there's something coming at us from the side. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant, it's just such an elegant structure that we don't have to think. It just happens. Like, how did that happen? So it's great, except for relationships. So it totally works, except for it ruins relationships, because we cannot connect to ourselves or others if we're in reactive brain. We get above the line, we get into creative brain, and that's all there is connection. Because we're in a relaxed, open-hearted, everything's slowed down, there's time to think. We have all of our cognitive resources back online that we lose. We're cognitively disabled in reactive brain. But it's a trickster, because we don't know that. Reactive brain says, no, I'm right. Last symposium I started with, there is no there there, that we don't, our brains are constantly having to manipulate the world. Our vision turns the world. I mean, it comes in upside down. We have to turn the world right side up just to see and to step through it accurately. So it's like we're doing all kinds of things in order to interface with the world. That we just think, oh no, it's really true. And reactive brain especially thinks it's all true. Exactly how I see it is how it is. But it's not. I mean, except that it is. I would actually say, yeah, it's all true at any given moment, which is very confusing to us, because whatever state we're in, we believe. That is like one of these human characteristic problems, because we can't actually access the other states. We can't remember them. If I'm angry, I can easily remember, yep, because all these other times, of course, because you let me down the other times and you said the things the other times. And you say, but Julie, remember, look at how beautiful it is outside. And by like, you don't understand me. You don't see what I see. Well, true, because you're in joy and I'm way down here. So understanding that we're all inhabiting different levels of consciousness at any given time. And politics, it's like, this is what we're running into with each other constantly, is some people are speaking from one state, and we're trying to then meet people from our own state. And we are, we have language for this. We're missing each other. We're literally missing each other because people don't feel understood or seen or whatever, because don't you see climate change? And I'm like, yeah, but it's a beautiful day and we're going to just get a ride around on my bike. And so it's like, we can't find each other from one state to the next unless we can start to appreciate how this works. Like, of course, and you get to feel what you feel. So that cardinal rule of anybody gets to feel anything, anytime, for any reason fits into this, because it's like, okay, I feel despair. That's what's happening in my body today. Great, I just want to let you know. And they're like, okay, good, thanks, good to know, because I'm in appreciation. And I don't have to be like, yeah, but see, you don't understand what's despair like. You could just say, yeah, Julie, you get to feel that, and I'm going to feel this, and we have room for each other to feel what we're feeling. And when you're working with somebody as a coach or a therapist, this is key, because basically this is why you're working with them, because they are stuck. They're stuck somewhere here. They're having anxiety attacks. They feel really bad and they don't know why. They are in self-hatred and they can't figure out how to get out of it. So that's why people come in to see you, see us, we see each other, because we are here and we know, well, maybe we don't know. We hope, maybe we believe that there's some different, better way to be. So I'm going to pause because you can hear I can just keep talking and talking. So I'm going to see if I've lost you and what you would like to comment on. I'm going to stop the share for a moment. So anybody have any thoughts so far? Questions, comments? Yeah, Jamie.
I really, for some reason, that word stuck really resonated, because that, I think it's a word that a lot of us use in life. Like, I just feel so stuck. So maybe not that, maybe they're not definitely feeling guilt or despair or shame, but just feeling so stuck in their lives. Personally, I've experienced that. So that really makes a lot of sense to me. And now I'm like, okay, how do we get out of that?
Okay, enough of that. Let's go. Yeah, because it feels unpleasant, eh?
It's so frustrating.
So frustrating. And to get and to be in that place, there's a few other pieces to it. And then I'll come back to questions. Like, one thing that Hawkins talks about, or what he calls attractor energies. So to see every step on this line, every place on the map, sharing again, share, Julie, there it is, as a different vibration, a different frequency, like a radio channel. There's the sadness channel, sort of like Cozy 101. There's the joy channel. I don't know what channel that is. I want to listen to that one more. Right. So, but what's happening is things are being broadcast. I'm broadcasting from my particular frequency. And I'm also attracting people who are in that frequency to me. So then what happens is I have this kind of, I'm still stuck in my own reality, because I'm saying, look how terrible things are. And other people are saying, I know, can you see how terrible they are? No, let's look at the statistic. Oh my God, they're terrible, right? And so I'm in this resonance chamber of my own frequency that gives me more and more data that I'm right. And less idea that there is some different channel out there.
Could I toss something into that thought, Julie?
Great.
And see what you think?
Yes.
Just because I had this client today, they used the word vibe. I would just add to what you said, could it also be too that people, or they attract, instead of attracting the person on the same wavelength, they attract somebody who like recapitulates that dynamic that triggers that person to stay there.
Absolutely. Well put. Yes. And so another dimension of this, going back, and this is the Stephen Porges work, the polyvagal work, that I love about my map. So this is not Stephen Hawkins. This is, I'm sorry, David Hawkins, right? Stephen Hawking. Anyway, this is not David Hawkins' work. This is me learning way back in the early 2000s from Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory. Because he was talking, he's the first person that I had heard, and he's really the trailblazer of this, talking about these different levels of response to threat. So he says that we're operating in these, so basically as mammals, we're constantly, one part of us is radaring for threat. Good idea. Like at any given moment, if something fell outside my window, I'd be like, okay. Or if you heard a loud noise, right? Good. Keeps you alive. That there are 3 levels to this, that basically there's one level that most of us, when we're in a relaxed state, it's called the social engagement nervous system. Our eyes are open, we're oriented to each other's faces. It's the eye gaze between mother and child, baby, right there. It's like, ooh, our bodies are in this nice relaxed state. We can hear better, which I think is so interesting. There's all of these things that are happening through our vagus nerve that keeps us in relationship, right? Creative brain. And then we detect a threat. And so then we first go into a fight response. Then if the threat persists or we can't get away, that's not actually true. Simultaneously, I would say, so we are mobilized into the fight or flight. If we can't get away, or if we believe we're challenged or whatever, this is like, you could do an entire career on just this question, but when do people go to fight and when do they go to flight? In general, mammals are much better off fleeing. I want to underline that. We are better off fleeing. So when you have an impulse to flee, I'm somebody who says flee, like run down the street, go, flee. Let your body have that, because you are better off fleeing than for a mammal to stay and fight is very, very risky. Think about an animal in the wild. What are they going to do if they stay and fight? It's much worse for them than if they flee. And of course, predator prey can enter into that. But still, but to understand, these are mobilized responses. Fighting and fleeing all have to do with activity, like activation, the whole activation system. But then if we are still under threat, or if the threat is severe, and now this is much more, we all know this stuff, we freeze. That's what's supposed to happen. We're the frozen bunny, we're that poo, we go into the freeze response. We immobilize our bodies. So to Megan's point, like these then go together. If I am, these are a match set. This is what hierarchy is. One person, let's go human mammals, one person is mobilized, one person gets immobilized. It's a match set. One person is dominating, one person is submitting. And what do we have? Social order. It's great. It works great, except for relationships. It works great in an emergency. Sit down. Okay. Go out this way. Okay. So this response is built in, I believe, for 1 million years of evolution for mammals. And it works really well, except it becomes power struggle in relationships. Most of us, we get triggered into these reactive brain states. We don't even know what's happening. We come home, we're tired, we're cranky, hungry, and we say, "What's for dinner?" And our person says, "Why are you so cranky?" And we say, I guess this is my story. And I say, oh, I'm not cranky because I think, well, you're cooking. No, thank you. Right. I mean, this happens in any interaction when there is some reactivity going on. We're standing in line at the grocery store in our socially distanced way where we're somewhat already in threat brain because we're looking around to see if anybody's too close, right? So this is a constant. It's mostly unconscious. And over time in relationships, because this is the dynamic of one person dominating, one person submitting. Now it can go back and forth, it can seesaw, but things can take on a tone. And then the other part of this symposium, this topic this time, is really about diagnosis. And what does this look like when somebody comes in to see you? Well, what this looks like, what immobilization looks like, of course, is depression. So that's interesting to me because if somebody walks into my office and they say they're really depressed, again, to Megan's point, I want to know who are they around that they're submitting to? What's happening at home? What's happening at work? What's going on? Because I believe then that this is an interaction. It's not just who they are. The whole brain chemistry thing, I mean, I'm sure that for some people that is very valid. It must be. I don't know. For a vast number of people, depression is despair, sadness. It's an immobilization response that is ongoing in their life that they are unconscious and unaware of. It's interactional. So, okay, yeah, I agree.
So you said, so who or what in their life are they submitting to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Now, it could be in their heads. It could be the Catholic Church that's telling them ever since they were teeny that they were a sinner, and now they're 40 and they're, right? So it could be that kind of interaction, which makes it even more, it's a little harder to dig out, but it's the same thing.
So like a paradigm or a belief system.
Yeah. That they've incorporated that is, now it seems like I'm sort of wandering around, so I better get a little more structured if you see it to make sure you can follow what I'm trying to say. Because we'll get to creative brain, but right now, because what we see, I mean, the problem is because of reactive brain. So let me really emphasize this. Overall, what I'm postulating here, and you can see it in my book, The Inner Map, and I'll show you a handout that I'm happy to send to you about, I believe every state of consciousness has a function to it. Despair has a function to it. It shuts somebody down, a mammal down, who has lost their love object in order to preserve their energy. That's a function. It's not something that just happens. It's not something that just, they had a bad day and I don't know, their brain chemicals didn't line up. I would say it's the opposite. Their brain chemicals are reflecting the experience of having their love object removed. And I believe that that is true with every single state, that there is a function to every state. And hopefully I'll be able to bring it back to this whole hierarchy thing. I think I can handle it. Let's see. So for example, yay that we've got this president who can be such a great example of this. Pride is this mobilized anger, but think about what pride does. It says, I am the king of the forest. I am big, you are little. I am better, you are worse. I know things that you don't know. Pride, the whole function of pride is to dominate. That's the function. We seem to like that. At least some group of our subgroup really likes to be told what to do. Well, in an emergency, that's good. I would say there's a whole subgroup of our country that believes now is an emergency. So kind of this ongoing chronic experience of losing their power. But so there's a function of pride. If that kind of mobilization of our body says, no, I'm right, you're wrong, you need to follow me, let's go. Very functional in terms of keeping social order. I believe anger, so pride is different from anger. Anger has just more straight out aggression than pride does. Pride has more of a righteousness with contempt attached to it. Again, this is human, but you can see it with mammals. This is so fun to have dogs around, because that snarl of, no, I am in charge, I'm the alpha, is that. No, you sit down. But that's different from the full out, bark, 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 bite, bite, bite. This is more of the warning of, I'm in charge. This is it's the backup behind the warning. Okay, this is what happens if you don't sort of give me my rightful place. So again, to start to see the function of this and to see it as, this is what is happening in relationships. That's why I love couples work so much, because I can see it. It's like in living color. I can watch one person dominate the other person who submits, which again is great. We probably worked along the way. It just as an ongoing way to relate to each other, you lose connection with yourself, you lose connection with the other. So just running through these, well, let's see, why don't I show you the other?
Well, you were to anger. You were saying what the function of anger was.
Yeah, I'm gonna go find the slide with this so that you can see it. There we go. Functions. Can you see that? I know there's a way to make it bigger, but let's see if I can make it bigger. No, I don't want to mess around with it. So functions. Okay, so this is about surviving. That's why we have a reactive brain. Yay. And just to take a moment and notice, it worked, y'all. Your reactive brain worked. Thank you. You survived. Good job. We'll come back to this about what's the problem, but since we're starting to be here, there we go. So there's functions. What's the function? It solidifies your status. I mean, whatever you think of our president, he was a master at this.
I'm not seeing function, sorry.
You're not. What do you see? Oh, I know
The
what happened.
inner map.
I have to
We're
stop
on the inner
here
map.
and come back. I forgot I had to do that. Okay, hang on. I forgot that it does it. Can you see it now?
Perfect.
Great. Yeah. So that's what it does for us. It says, yeah, I am the alpha and you are not. Then what's the function of anger? Says, yeah, see, if you didn't listen to me, so now I'm going to bite you, and it works. So, but we can keep going down and look at the function of each of these. And the reason this is worth it for you is because when people come into your office and they are in agitated fear, you could say, oh my God, you've got a panic disorder and you are, we need to figure out how to, of course, I don't think anybody here would say this, but we've got to figure out how to tranquilize you or whatever. I don't know if you'd say that, but you might be like, oh shit, what's wrong with this poor person? We've got to calm them down without getting the message. So overall, the tools that I teach, it all has a message. Listen to the body. We've got to listen to the body. And if we try to just tell the body to shut the hell up, we're missing what the body is working so hard to tell us. It's trying to say, bah, help, get me out of here. That's what agitated fear is for. It's like, okay, go, go, go. Like, all that activated energy, go. Like there's a reason for it. And if we just are trying to sit still and sit on our hands because it's the fifth Zoom call or whatever, it's like, ugh. Like that's why I'm glad Megan's walking. Anybody else can't do it. Good, follow what the body is trying to get us to do. But then again, to see if the threat persists, we go into the frozen fear. It's an indicator that the threat is that intense, that that's all our bodies can do. So, but look, there's a reason, there's something it does. Because think about if you just try a freeze for a moment, like try it in your body, like what was that? Look what it does. It's an orienting response. Think of a herd of gazelles and they all hear the thing, right? They stop, their bodies are very still, and they look. So good. So, uh-oh. And then they look for their leader who says, go. And then we all go. And we run, little gazelles in a direction, right? We follow the leader. Then we go, right? We use what was, so that's why frozen fear is right there next to agitated fear, because it's not like it's, the energy's gone. It's just stopped. Now, if we continue down the line into sadness, like what is the point of sadness? Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Like, why would we go from frozen fear to sadness? And it's sort of like going down the keys of the keyboard. Well, what we're doing was we're kind of pulling ourselves in because, oh, you're in charge of the milk, and you left me alone in my crib. So what can I do? Well, like first can be like mad and scared and like pushing, myself up and like calling and pushing on the crib. But then eventually I'll kind of collapse and just cry. Like, hey, where'd you go? Come back. It's a protest response. Now, for any of you who have lost anybody recently or are, in that place, we probably are all somewhere in loss at any given moment. You can go in either direction, right? You can go from sadness down into despair because at some point it's too hard to keep crying. So you've abandoned that protest. It starts to look like depression. You're shutting yourself down for a couple of reasons: to conserve what you have left, and then also because if you're pulled in and shut down, there's you're not going to get somebody to be aggressive towards you. Like you're just like pulled in. So again, to look at what is the message of the state instead of let's just make you not feel this. It's like, what are you trying to tell yourself? To trust your body and trust the state. I was going to say something else about this. Oh yeah. So really important, like here's a tip. If you're in despair, you're like, oh God, how you could be listening to your thoughts. It's very handy. Your thoughts will tell you what state you're in. You can tell my main thought was, what's the point? And that alerts me, it tells me if that persona, that reactive brain part of me is starting to say that, I can say somewhere in me, eventually I'll say, oh, that's despair. And the tip is, I need to cry. I need to get my body to get out of this shutting down place and start to move towards protesting. I need to re-engage my protest response. And if you're around clients who are stuck in this kind of depressed despair place, that's a step back out of the freeze. We're starting to get more into the mobilization instead of the more into the immobilization.
Could you say that last part, that last sentence one more time, please?
Yes. With each step down on the map, which is really each step in and more contracted, it's not up down. That's a whole, anyway, sorry to add all these things at once, but it's each step into more contraction. It gets harder and harder to get out of it. I mean, to notice that for yourself, like you go into it, it's hard to get out of it. If you're angry, if you're like way up there, it's not so hard to keep kind of getting in like, okay, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to get out. Because my body is already moving. Yeah, I really feel like hitting something. Okay, well, I'm going to dance. Like it's not easy, but easier to interrupt. Then as you go further and further down this, it's harder to move it again because you're already frozen. You're pulling in more and more, and it's hard to get your body to go in the other direction. So anything that starts to move us back out again into the mobilization, like that would be the main thing to think about. What little thing can anybody do who's getting further and further down the map to start to interrupt this response, to go in the other direction, to add energy instead of just to pull in, pull in, pull in. This is as we get further down. So now we've got guilt, shame, okay, the final two, I don't know, horrible places to go, and to remind you that shame is right just above death. Guilt is just above shame. Well, this is really interesting to me because clearly Brene Brown, like people talk a lot about shame, and I love Brene Brown and I love her work. And what I don't really agree with is that it's a thing. I don't think we can sort of talk somebody out of shame. Well, okay, I know you hate yourself, and let's talk about why you hate yourself or what you should do about hating yourself. It's like, nah, well, I understand all of that. It makes sense to me. Except really what I think happens is people have gone into submission and that they have frozen, they have stopped the energy, they've cut off the energy, they've like throttled the energy that should be moving. So that fear should be moving, anger should be moving, sadness should be moving, but instead I can't let it move because if I do, I'm going to be threatening the alpha. So
Can you say that part one more time? That
sure.
You just said?
So I'm trying to use an actual example, and I hope I'm not offending anybody if I use the Catholic Church. So just bear with me. My partner's ex-Catholic, so that's just so flagrant. But any other, just pick any religion. It's just that's the one that I know more about. Clearly, guilt is a really important thing. Is to, people are sinners. Well, I guess I grew up in that. I was Episcopalian, and we just felt better about being that guilty. I don't know what happened. Anyway, the whole point is to absorb and internalize a system that says there's something wrong with us. I'd say Judeo-Christian religion, that's the whole idea. We're original, stained by original sin. There's basically something wrong with us. Well, look what that does. Oh, really? I want to go have sex with my neighbor's wife or whatever. That sort of sounds funny to me right now. But isn't that one of the, I don't know. Anyway, the commandments, I can't remember. But what happens in my body? Oh, I feel guilty. I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't have sex with my neighbor's wife. That would be bad. I'm a sinner. I won't do that. Well, so I'm pulling in my impulse. Well, why would I do that? Well, I'm scared if I don't. Somebody's going to tell me I'm bad. But meanwhile, there's this anger simmering under the surface because I want to do what the hell I want to do. That's what anger is for. But I can't. I'm too afraid of the repercussions. And with shame, it's this really interesting turnaround. So like, why in the world are guilt and shame below the line, below despair? It seems like despair should be the end of the road. Like it's the worst feeling. Well, I don't think so, because I think what happens, despair, we pull in, we're like, I can't, okay, I'm giving up on anybody coming. But then we pull in more, and then the anger starts, then the aggression starts, and it's so internalized. I feel guilty because I know basically I'm a sinner. So I'm gonna just start aiming that anger at myself. See, there really is something wrong with me, because I'm afraid if I don't do that, that whoever, the priest or whatever, is going to tell me how bad I am. And shame is the perfect way to control me. You say, Julie, yeah, there's basically something wrong with you. You're like, oh God, you're right. I'm afraid. Like if you ask me, if you unwound my body, let's see, what would be, contempt is perfect for this. So let's see, a contemptuous comment. Julie, you suck as a person. That's clearly doesn't have very many, like, I can't believe you are so mean and cruel. Okay, good. Mean and cruel. How could you? And I'm like, oh my God, you're right. I feel afraid of having offended you, but look at what cost. I'm I'm so afraid of your anger. No, wait, I messed it up. I'm going to try it again. I'm afraid because you're the alpha, but meanwhile, with all this anger going on, because I'm sick of you trying to control me, and the sadness because I've given up connection to myself. What have I lost? Well, I've lost me because I'm just trying to be like you because you told me I have to be. So I believe it's a response to a whole social structure, and it's a response to power instead of there's a real thing that I'm really ashamed. I don't think I'm ashamed. I think my energy is all tamped down and squeezed together so that I don't try to hurt you because you're bigger than me, or you've got more status, or the cost is going to be too great. Whew, that was a mouthful. The stuff is shared so you can all catch up with me. You can see where I go with this stuff. So tell me, where did I lose you, or what doesn't make sense, or what do you think?
I have a couple questions, but I've asked one already. So if somebody, I don't want to take up all the time.
Why don't you get us started, Megan?
Okay, so I have a couple of clients in this place, and my question is, because it is born out of relationship, that they're both women and they're both in heterosexual relationships, and yes, they're recapitulating this in their relationship, but of course, right, it originated in both cases with their parents, primarily their mothers, but there's definitely some father stuff there too. But so in working with these folks, as I'm conceptualizing this being born out of relationship, of course, and working on moving the energy in them, but am I conceptualizing, or maybe it doesn't matter, working with it as the feelings relate to that original relationship, or as they relate to their spouse in the present, knowing that what's happening with their spouse in the present is just, right, a recapitulation of the original thing.
Great. I love it. What you will do, probably some version of, where do you feel it in your body? Okay, I feel it. Let's just walk through it. Oh God, I feel really depressed today. Where do you feel it? Oh, just I can hardly move. Okay, right? Because there it is, like I'm pulled in. Okay, so well, let's just see if we can disrupt that a little bit. Could you just sit up a little bit? No, I don't want to. Well, let's try it. Some of the time the answer is no, and they'll say, okay, then go curl up on the couch. Go into it bigger. But let's just say, okay, all right, what's happening in your body now? Oh, let's see, I don't know, of course, the whole shutdown thing. All right, but we're working at, oh, well, my stomach hurts and my jaw's tight, right? I mean, you're going to find it. And my chest, there's all this swirling in my chest. Okay, mad, sad, scared, you're walking through. And then, all right, oh, mad. Well, what are you mad about, right? What are you getting that you don't want, or not getting that you want? What does that remind you of? Well, last night my husband yelled at me about the food. Okay, I didn't like that. Okay, what else does that remind you of? Right? It's all going to come together. The energy itself, the trigger itself, will take you to the source. And you're right, it doesn't matter whether it was her husband or her mother. It's her learned response to go down instead of to actually let herself feel what she's feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. That all makes sense. And then I guess I'm just so curious there about, right when you asked, what does that remind you of? And she says the thing about her husband, and your instinct as the therapist, like, okay, and what else does that remind you of? So I guess I'm curious, when you ask that question, are you asking it because in your mind, you're kind of, the container that you're holding for them is that by asking her that question again, you're inviting her further back, and that's your intention there? Or tell me more about that intention.
nice therapist question. Well, yeah, it's a great, I'm actually not sure what I would do there, because the bottom line of all of this, you strip it all down, the only thing that needs to happen is for her to move the energy.
Yeah,
She
I
doesn't
just,
need to understand where it came from.
no, I guess I just got really curious about because something, without you even thinking about it in this moment of practice here with us, you instinctually, in hearing the, I know we're just role playing here, whatever, in hearing her say the thing about dinner, you instinctually, as a therapist, said, okay, and what else does that remind you of?
Yeah.
And I'm just curious about that.
Well, and it's a really great question in this whole field is, when do you care? And when do you want to know the story? But
Mm-hmm.
people like the story. And it
So you're not trying.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So you're not trying, I just want to clarify. So you're not doing that because there's some intention clinically, conceptually on your end of supporting a process that goes further back.
I actually really want to get ultimately, I want it to be that moment. Like, oh, actually it was when I was 3.5. Like,
cool.
It's like rooting it out, getting the dandelion down and getting it out right at that moment. In fact, there's a process that we use different times in groups where that's what we're doing, is start with the persona, which is basically the state of consciousness. And then we find when was it first born and try to shift that moment in time where it doesn't have to be born, because somebody can feel it and get as angry as they feel or sad or whatever. So yes, that ultimately I do want.
Okay. Because that's how I'm conceptualizing this as well, and how I've conceptualized your work. But I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess, that's super helpful, because sometimes, right, when people, this is in their original relationship, it's the original relationship, now it's their partnership, and then there's also some part in their own self that's the alpha.
Yeah.
Too, right? And that's whoa.
Oh, totally. You don't need the Catholic Church anymore. You don't need the domineering mother anymore. That's all happening internally. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks for clarifying all that.
Yeah, and there's another reason to go back to the moment that it happened too, that's the ultimate healing, is bringing awareness to, at 3.5, I was furious. I mean, who remembers this? But I can remember being whatever. And I was so mad at my mother. I couldn't be mad at my mother. Like, there's the moment right now to put awareness on the time of disconnecting from presence. Like, how does any of this energy move anyway? Well, because I'm fully present with the experience of feeling as angry as I feel. Now I can move it out of my body. Everything else is, okay, no, 3.5, 16, 20, like, I'm not angry. So all this kind of accumulation of anger that was never felt. So the more I could go back and just kind of uproot the whole shlong and get, like, it's about moving the energy out.
Yeah. I wanted to say that when I'm working with clients and I ask, what does that remind you of, or how old is it? That's really powerful for my clients to recognize if it's old energy that they're moving. And it's really empowering for them to recognize that whether it's old energy or something that they recognize from a young age, they can still move it.
Yeah.
In them. And that's huge. It's really empowering for them to realize that it's not going to take 10 years. They can just feel it and move it.
Do it right now. Yeah. Nice.
Thanks. I think it's Glennie, I agree. I think it's like the most powerful in those moments of the somatic process, that it is the most powerful question ever. And people, you said, Julie, like, I don't know who's going to remember that. It's amazing what just comes to people, like being 3 in the crib, it's seriously, it's amazing. I've actually only experienced a couple of people not being able to answer that question.
Okay, all right. And I'll add one other reason to do it is because she can stop blaming her husband all the time. Because people think it's about their husband versus, oh, you mean what? This has to do with me and I'm repeating a pattern of my mother? So they've heard of that, but they don't buy it because it's their husband's driving them crazy again. So to start to put those patterns together is a big deal.
Someone said this great thing in this meeting I was in today. If you're hysterical, it's historical.
Ooh, nice. Love that.
That's a good one, right? Because it's so easy.
Steppers, they have the best slogans. That is great. It's hysterical. If you're hysterical, it's historical. Mm-hmm. Other things that are coming up.
I think this is a question that's kind of along the same lines of what you've been talking about, but just to clarify. So if you're in reactive brain, there is an old energy, there is a trigger, there is an old point that the energy is referencing, or is there a new energy, something you might be, I'm just thinking, are there situations where it truly is in the moment that you might be responding to that isn't pulling up something that's stuck? And how do you discern the difference?
The car that just swooped by and you step back from the curb. Yep. Mm-hmm. Like,
was it just when it clears out, then you know it's not a trigger? Okay.
Yes. Let's see. How would you know the difference? At some point, so I'm going the historical part, right? If I'm overreacting, like you said that thing and you looked like that and you wiggled your eyebrow, I can't believe you did that again, Sarah, right? If there's a part of this that just doesn't make sense. So how would you know? Well, because it's kind of perseverating, right? And it's like, and it's about Sarah. It's not like there's all of the stuff that starts going with that. And over time, like I've done, because I'm old, 63, I've done so much clearing of energy. For the most part, when something happens, I know that it's not historical. It comes through and it's a faster moving storm, but that doesn't mean that's always true. I can think of 2 different things this week that were historical. So yeah, how did I know the difference? Oh, because it was so much more upsetting. Just like what Kathy just said, it was that I felt more hysterical, so much more upsetting. And versus, oh, whew, wow, that was a close one.
And that's where it's a persona just doing its thing.
It's a persona just doing its thing.
Okay.
Indeed.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Another thing, like I say, is like the 25-cent reaction to the nickel event.
Ooh.
You know, and I know that one, I know, right? They're good. Yeah, the 25-cent reaction to the nickel event. Because like I know this week I had an experience with this. I had a pipe burst and you know, it flooded my basement, but it wasn't, I mean, it was bad, but it wasn't bad. You know what I mean? Like it was bad, but like I was able to do what I had to do. And I was just flipping out. And I sat there with my body and just said, you know, yes, this was a shock. Yes. I mean, this is not, you know, a welcomed scenario in my life. And yes, there are lots of things I actually need to do to fix this in the moment, because water, you can't put a lot of time, you know, you have to do it right away. But I was able to sit on my couch when I was waiting for my plumber to call me back and go, you know, I don't actually need to be this upset. I can tell that I'm just reminded of the fact that this is how my parents reacted to crisis all the time. Like, oh my God, it was like a big deal. And there was a lot of rage and there was a lot of panic. And so my body is just accustomed to going to this very high place. But my brain was like, okay, but it's not that bad. And so I sat in my living room and did this with my brain. And then I said, all right, I'm just going to freak out. So I just ran around the room and I did freak out. I was like, freak out. And I let my body shake. And my dog looked at me like I was nuts because it was already pretty crazy in the house and with water everywhere. And I was like, this isn't what I need to be in, you know, but I couldn't get my body to calm down just by saying, you know, it's going to be okay. I had to let my body give the expression of the freak out. And so to me I mean, I'm not trying to talk about my life here, but it just seemed like a really good example of this exact process. I did it with someone else this week too, for her, but I don't know. I just thought, that's a good example of it's not aligning with what's happening, even though what happened was a bit of a, oh God, it is a little bit of a what do you call it, Julia? An energizer, a thing to react to. It's a little bit of a reactive event, but it's not that, no one died.
Yes, and here's one last answer, maybe it's the last one. Talk about being in ease and flow, and then something happens. And then we're out of ease and flow into whatever until we can shift back into ease and flow. Well, there are all kinds of things that happen in a day. So most of them you don't notice them. The driver cuts in, you just let them in. Or you drop the groceries and they just drop them. Like, you don't notice them. So it's when oh God, I just dropped everything. I just can't even carry things anymore. Like, when it shows up as something just happened, it's probably an old response. Anything else? Catch up.
Julie, I think that is.
I think it was Cynthia. Go ahead, Cynthia, and then.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
What I'm appreciating is that the thing that shows up that triggers is the old response, and I appreciate that, coming back to that again and again, in a sense of like, oh, I didn't get triggered by anything else, or I watch my clients not get triggered, but what is the thing, or what are the things that continue to trigger them, and getting to play, going back to what's that persona, and how it's been really effective and really supportive. So thank you.
Great. And I had a really good thing to say, and then I just totally blanked on it. So I don't know what it was.
Is there anything else there that you could say about when something just happens? How you're distinguishing that as a way back trigger versus I think I'm not like completely following when you say when something just happens.
Great, because that takes me to the really good thing I want to say. So if I'm way activated by some experience, like, oh God, and I'm really upset. I mean, all the words we have, like my physiology is upset by an experience. The good news here is maybe, and hopefully it is really connected to all this old stuff. Because right now I have the opportunity to move that old energy out of my body. Like, whoa, Lenny's looking at me and now I'm really, I don't know, sad. Oh, good to see you, Lenny. Like, oh, okay, ooh, I feel sad. Oh, what is this reminding me of? Takes me like, oh, now I get to move the old stuff that's been sitting in my body ever since I was 3.5. I didn't know, but now I get to move it. I don't even need to know what it was that happened, but yeah, I get to finally be angry, sad, scared. So how do you know? Well, because you're upset. But it sounds like that's important to know, because I would say, again, what this comes down to is it's all about clearing out energy, the dense energy, which is apparently in my mind denergy now. It's all about just moving out the dense energy. That's the only, like, it just comes down to that. Whether it's 50 years old or it's 5 seconds old, can I move it out and feel an open, expanded body again? Oh God, I can't. Now I'm in the drudge of the old stuff. Okay, how else can I move it out? Breathing, moving. There's lots of ways to move out old energy, but that becomes the focus and less about the story. And I guess we know that. I want to say a little bit more about the difference between reactive brain and creative brain, because what happened today? I don't know. It's been a long day. I can't get you back to the source because I don't know what it was. But what I heard was, oh, I was on a call, there we go, with some really, really great colleagues. Can't quite get it. And somebody was saying, yeah, because they kept talking, they were describing somebody else. Something was really wrong. Oh, here it was. This, okay, my colleague is working with this big group of politicians about some big conservation impact of traffic, and I don't even know what she's doing. And she said, yeah, this person contacted me, and they, oh, because we said, all of these things are better. See, it's all better. And they said, yes, but this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong. And I said, oh, so they were still in reactive brain, because that is a hallmark of reactive brain, is that we're stuck in what is wrong, what is wrong, what is wrong. So to start to be able to parse out, okay, creative brain says, oh, I appreciate this, and I love this, and we're good, and expand it, and it's possible. Well, when we go into those other states, if it is not possible, we can't do this, this is stupid, and I can't believe you made me do this again. Like to be able to discern, which we as a country, like we don't have a way even to talk about it, but a large part of our populace is in reactive brain all the time, but we're acting as though we're all fine. We're not fine, we're in freaking reactive brain. Now, most people don't have any clue. And when I talked to somebody else today who has been doing this work actually for quite a while, and said, well, it turns out I'm in reactive brain. I'm in the triangle. He said, I'm in the triangle from the time I wake up till the time I go to sleep. Oh, poor guy. In other words, he's in reactive brain. He's in stress response all day long. Now, of course, he's probably not. He probably is doing some things that get him out of that. But to kind of see that people have no idea. It's this unconscious thing, and they just think this is normal. And that's why they have to smoke or eat sugar or whatever, because they feel slightly better. If they drink enough alcohol, they feel somewhat better for a while. Like, we're trying, we're doing the best we can, but we don't even know it's happening. So on the outside, for you to have some way to signal to yourself, either you are in reactive brain or the people around you are in reactive brain. And so I'm going to show you this, see if you actually see it this time. Coming back to this, can you see it? Functions of each level of consciousness.
Yes.
Good, thank you. To know, this is how you can tell your focus is narrow. Things seem urgent, like you've got to do something right now. You think the same old thing, like, okay, we have to have a budget, or I gotta leave, or this is never gonna work. Like the same old stories are running through your mind, the same old personas are talking. You're not able to figure stuff out. You're getting tired, you're in your stress response. And here's a really important one. You thought this person that you loved them and they were friendly and even your beloved, and then you realized all along that they were your enemy. Like they had you fooled, but now you know the truth is that they are the threat. They are your enemy. If you've done that, all that is, it's this immediate shift to reactive brain. And that's what we're doing. Friend, foe, oh, you're foe. I thought you were a friend, you're a foe. But to get, oh, that's just reactive brain, it's just snuck in there again. It doesn't mean it's true you're my foe. It might be true right in that moment, but that's my experience of you. So to be able to kind of see this, that's right, again, politics are so handy this week because that's all people are doing. Who's the enemy? Somebody. It's you, it's me, it's them. And actions are hard. Now, many people identify with this. Like they think, well, speak for myself. I thought that was how I had a self, was to struggle and put in a lot of effort and things were hard. And that if I wasn't doing that, well, I wasn't a good person. But basically, how would I engage with life if it wasn't effortful? But I'm not the only one, y'all. So when we're in reactive brain, we just think that's how life is, right? That's what we hear right now. Another call. I hear this, it's like this constant refrain. Well, things are so hard right now. We just know things are just really hard right now. Well, and thinking to myself, trying to not sound obnoxious because people don't really like this when I say, that's arguable. But that's not my experience. Because I know when things are hard for me, it just means I'm in reactive brain. That's all it means. It doesn't mean things are hard. It means I'm in reactive brain. That if I want things to be not hard, then I need to shift my own consciousness. And suddenly I'm back in ease. And I can think better. And my body feels better. And I'm generating energy. And people are my allies. And I can see a bigger possibility, and everything is slowed down. So I don't think things are easy, things are hard. I don't think that. I think I'm in reactive brain or I'm in creative brain. And I just want to emphasize this last point. All of these functions are perfect. So like all of these functions up here of narrow focus, etc., are perfect for what reactive brain is designed to do. And in creative brain, it also has functions, and they're all perfect for what creative brain is designed to do. So let's just rattle through that. Oh, see, I lured you into the idea we're going to stop early, but we still need to go dance because we have to move this out of our bodies. But each of these above the line, these are all states above the line. This is how they line up there's less energy. You go up, there's more and more expansiveness. But it doesn't mean this is good and this is bad. It doesn't mean peace is good and despair is bad. It means, right now, this is a function. And that's nice. I can connect to unity, and that's the whole idea of peace. And I go out to that expanded field, and that's what it's doing. And my whole being is doing that. But that's not better than being in anger. It just is different. It's a different function. So, okay, I'm going to choose love. Because right now I'm going to because I'm choosing that experience. I want to join with the energy and feel co-creative. So I'm going to connect with the vibration of love in order to do that. That's what we're doing when we're practicing. Think of somebody or something you love easily. We're just practicing evoking that particular vibration, that channel that's being broadcast. Appreciation. We can do all of these things. We can choose to create a state of neutrality. That's cool. We can also choose to create a state of shame. If you're bored, we could do that. Sadness. We're good at all of them. I would say for me, I'm much better at these than these. I'm cultivating these. So hopefully you want to do that with me. So to understand every level of consciousness has its own function, its own reason for being. They're all perfect. We're perfectly designed to experience life from the whole, as whole human beings, from the most expanded to the most contracted and everywhere in between. That's what our bodies are designed to do if we would listen to them and get the message. Get the message. We can trust our bodies. And we can trust our minds to tell us, to listen to the thoughts. The thoughts will tell us where we are on the map. And then we can be like, oh, great, I'm in frozen fear. That's helpful. Do I want to stay there? Yeah. Okay. I think some of you have heard me talk about after our dog Belle died a couple of months ago. So sad for a couple of days, 3 or 4 days. And at some point, I thought, okay, I'm just tired of feeling sad. And so I said to Kathy, my partner, let's watch Rachel Maddow because I could really use some self-righteous pride, which totally worked. I was just plugged right into that. Felt better. Well, I didn't feel great, but I felt better. More energy.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
In terms of loss and grief and energy. So in one of Hawkins' books, Healing and Recovery, he has a chapter on managing crisis or chaos or something. I can't remember exactly what. And so he talks about when that energy comes, it's an opportunity to release all these old energies that have sort of built up and to not label, just let it pass through, and that it will continue to come until it's completed, essentially. But then when I hear you say, when your dog passed, you got tired of feeling sad for 3 days, I just wonder how you make sense of that in terms of like the choice to move yourself up on the map versus, is that energy going to come again at some point and clear it out? Or
Yeah, great question, Sarah. Why did I choose that?
Like, I think my question is, how do you know that you're not just stuffing it away?
Yeah, that you're actually complete.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember kind of thinking through some of that at the time. I don't really know what I decided. It was some version of, okay, I know I'm going to feel this again. There's still more to come. I'm not done with my grief. I mean, today I was looking at a picture of her, like, oh. So I think it was some version of that. But I think that is the question, like, okay, am I done with this? I also am less afraid of going to those places now, so that, okay, if I'm not done, but I'm kind of tired of being in it, all right, I'll be back. I'll be back. And it doesn't have to be like, oh my God, I'm going to fall into this pit of sadness again and will I ever be seen again. Now I see it all as having a ladder out. And so I've got lots more tools to move out of that.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
So for clients, Julie, when you're using this as an intervention, how much psycho-ed about this do you use, or do you just walk versus walking them through, moving up the map as you've taught us? I'm just curious, and if you have any kind of nuggets there about using this as an intervention.
I don't do much. So the reason I keep using the same up-down map instead of, it's at my office, the Hoberman sphere goes like this, because it's much more accurate. It's to be expanded, contracted. But I show them up and down because we all know, oh yeah, I feel really up today. Oh God, I feel down. Like we use this language. It's just, it makes it sound good and bad, so it's unfortunate. But people get it pretty much right away. And so usually what I do is say, okay, here you are, like here's the map. Where are you on the map? And that's kind of all they need to know. And I might add in, I mean, I'm just tuning in, of course, to what they are asking or what's the issue. But starting to bring in the whole idea of reactive brain so that people can understand there's a cost. I mean, the main problem, well, there's lots of issues with being in a reactive brain, but a big problem is there's a cost to it. So I'd like people to understand, to be able to tell the difference. How do you know you're in reactive brain or not? Physiologically, what do you know? What are the signals to you? Here's a good one. John Gottman's idea of 100 beats, your pulse is over 100, right? That was what he came up with. If your pulse is over 100, you shouldn't be talking. It was another thing that I was like in the middle of my understanding at the time. Like, what do you mean you shouldn't be talking? That's when I want to talk. Are you kidding me? But to have some idea of, okay, my physiology just changed into, I am not somebody who should be interacting with other people at this time. So what are the physiological indicators?
And when you say cost, you mean helping them to understand like the energy spent or the...
Yes. Energy spent. We are tired. It uses up energy with all of that. We even getting really angry, the thrill of anger. We get tired. We're sad, we cry, we're tired. This is tiring because it uses up, it uses up energy, and partly because we're in all that bath of stress chemicals, the cortisol and the adrenaline. Why do people have adrenaline fatigue? When we're walking around in a reactive brain. Creative brain, we're generating energy. So for people who are interested and who isn't about, levels of exhaustion and just dragging themselves through life, I was like, yeah, because if you're in reactive brain all the time, it's just kind of dire in there. Life looks hard and dark, and it is hard. So the efforting of being in resistance.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I always use the analogy, the metaphor as people of a dam, like holding back all this water into your, yeah. Are there other understandings of cost that you want them to know?
Power struggle.
Okay.
In relationship. If we're in reactive brain, we're in power struggle. And we might not know because, okay, fine. Sure, whatever. Yes, dear. And it might look fine, but it's still power struggle. It's kind of this silent thing. It can start much, much louder, and often people just kind of give up because it doesn't work. They can't figure out their way through that. And so then they kind of go into that immobilized responsive, but that's how relationships are. We have to settle. If you want to be with somebody long term, you just kind of settle into reactive brain. Except when you go away and have beers with the guys, or when you can just talk about things, your husband's at the coffee club, whatever, right? Okay, then we can feel a little better, but then we come back together. And that's kind of what we expect. I don't expect that. I want us all to raise the bar. Our natural state is joy. Our natural state, everybody, I'm going there. I'm going to show you. Here's our natural state. I want you to seize this. This is your birthright. Where's the inner map? I don't know. There it is. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, it's going to work. Your natural state is up here. This is how you come in. If you're not there, then you're out of balance. This is an Ayurvedic idea, medicine from India. This is who we are in balance. We're alert, we're relaxed, and we feel joy. If that's not happening, then why? What's in the way of that? And kind of have some sense of entitlement as a human, that that's the place you get to live. Now, it's not easy. We set up a lot of interesting roadblocks for ourselves and the stuff that we got to move through so that we can get back there, but to have some idea that, yeah, and that's the destination. All right, that seems like a great place to kind of start to wrap. So any final what was I going to say? Not concepts, questions, thoughts, comments, that might be the word.
Do you think that people or clients coming in have to acclimate to those ideas?
Oh, yeah. Otherwise, they wouldn't be coming in. If they're filled with joy, they won't be coming in. But yeah, so the whole, and just again, me saying to anybody right now, when people are saying this kind of constant chorus of, because you know how bad things are, it is weird to be saying no. I mean, I know it's a little socially awkward, unacceptable, because we have kind of this shared narrative that I'm interrupting. And it seems a little irresponsible to be doing that. So, oh yeah, to acclimate, that it's okay to feel good. Our culture is trained that way. At least the one I'm like, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant culture. I don't know of others. But mine is weird this way. That there's something suspicious about feeling good. That probably was true 200 years ago, because who knows, the village idiots, were starving to death or something. I don't know, but now that's not the issue. Anything else?
There's comments on here about, sharing a document about pathology. Did you see that?
Okay, let me look.
Oh, I was just wondering if there was something that existed
Great.
with the stakes, and what, like, not exactly pathology, but like diagnosis would match those.
Great. Well, I don't have a worksheet, but it would be fun to make one up. And so
yeah,
just do a quick step up the map and see. I mean, this is a good game. But I'll just go for it since coming to the end here. Shame, I would say, what does it look like, right? It looks like depression. It looks like somebody that can't move. They can't leave their bed. And they hate themselves, and they're cutting, and they're suicidal because they want to die. That's what that looks like. Guilt, they're moving around a little more, but they feel horrible, and there's still sort of a lot of retribution and inner kind of self-castigation, right? Because that anger's got to go somewhere. But they don't feel good. And there's addictions probably to all of these because it helps a little bit to feel a little bit better. Despair, depression, sadness. So we've got, of course, depression all in here. This is all the depression sequence. But now we get up to fear, frozen fear, right? Anxiety. Oh God, I can't move. I don't know. I can't think. I don't know what's wrong with me. Oh, and the other way this looks is in a couple. Why don't you ever talk to me? Says the dominator. I don't know.
Julie, can I interrupt you? Because I'm actually having a hard time with this part of the conversation. Because what we talk about is just somewhat of the rapid movement up and down, and it just feels like putting a pathology or a diagnosis on this is absolutely kind of counter to what you use this for.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. Yes, and to kind of give you a leg into that other world. So thank you for context. Like if somebody is, because people have looked themselves up on the internet. So the language, so I don't know if I'm looking at you to see if I can pull you back in with me. I just lost you there at the last minute. So I got to get a better view of you. Yeah, so thank you, because I don't mean to say this is what I would be doing in a session.
Yes, but I think even using the tool for as a concept, because what I just heard was, how can we put a diagnostic code onto these states of awareness? And this whole piece is not about pathology. It's not about a diagnosis. It's about the ability to identify and shift through using the tools. And I've heard you say so many times that creating a diagnosis is just a snapshot in time. And particularly as your body of work has just become so much richer, it just seems like this is absolutely not a tool to match up with that.
Thank you for the clarification. So,
and I think it helps just to say, how I've worked it with clients is it actually helps people disidentify with a diagnosis by explaining what's actually happening. So I don't know that it's to give someone a diagnosis as much as for them to understand if they've been given a diagnosis.
yes, this is not an instrument, a secret instrument to then go be better at diagnosing people. So I just jumped into that because of time, not because that is what I think.
Yeah, and I just think the word pathology is also not a
Very,
good one.
very. And so to back up and to kind of reiterate, this is a learning model. This is not a model of pathology. This is a model of, oh, I can do this. I can shift my own states, instead of the model saying, oh, this person is a depressed person. This person is a narcissist. This person is that used to be very good at that. For me, what it does is kind of cement, it anchors somebody into a state for me, for them, and that's exactly what is not working. That we don't have any idea that then we've got any ability to shift our own state. We think I'm just a depressed person. We probably don't think I'm just a narcissist, but other people around us do.
And I would add, Jennifer, I don't know what your client relationship is like, but lots of people come in having pathologized themselves. And so this, I think, is really helpful, not to further pathologize them, but to help them see, like what Lenny was saying, where are they on the map, and then and teach them how that this is a dynamic thing. It's not, your diagnosis isn't a cemented state. And I think, Julie, you laying this out in this way, what's helpful as a clinician is, again, not for the function of diagnosis, but to be able to understand, oh, where is my client, so that I can appropriately meet them and understand them, right? If my client is cutting, oh, okay, that's like really helpful information to hear that for you, Julie, that's synonymous oftentimes with shame. So in that way, it's an instrument that's really inviting to be able to meet your client, not to diagnose them and pathologize them and get them stuck, but to meet them.
Yeah. Is any of that helping, Jennifer? Because another way that people are often coming in is, oh, I've been on antidepressants for the last 2 years and I don't seem to be feeling better. So they've already kind of been down that road, been in that whole paradigm of, and so what's wrong with me? And I mean, I'm hearing this often from people where people are diagnosing each other and their parents. So yeah. So actually the opposite. So thank you. And still, and Cynthia just said the dancing is over, so I'm slowing down. And still, this is what we like when people are in pride. We code them, like the way that other folks diagnose that is narcissism. So when I hear about the narcissistic partner, I'm looking for, okay, what's the power dynamic here? How much is this person, or maybe, of course, again, a narcissistic person is probably not going to come in because they're too proud to be there. There's not something wrong with them. Down here, these folks are going to come in because there's something wrong with them. I mean, that's interesting, isn't it? Except that these folks come in because they have anger problems and maybe they're court ordered because they have to come in. So yeah, so we typically will be interfacing, and speak for ourselves, speak for myself. I have trouble when I'm here, and I have trouble with my anxiety when I get more mobilized and I can't get that stuff to move through. But then, of course, I can get really angry, and then I can feel bad about it and go back down here, immobilize, right? So kind of moving around, and what isn't working in a life has to do with that we don't know how to get back up here into the creative land. Anything else? So Lenny, did that answer your question? That was good. That got us through a whole good meander.
Well, just thank you for sharing all this with us, Julie. It was really informative and helpful.
Great, good. And of course, here's the book now with the really great, cool bookmark. I asked Bet to read the book, or I can't remember, and she said, "This is good, but it needs a bookmark." So now it has a bookmark. So that explains the whole paradigm and the functions of each state. So it's got the stuff in it, if you need that. And just so you know, like I just want to get these books out there because it's such helpful information for people. So I was selling it to the people in the above the line, the elections above the line for $10. I'm selling it sort of to practitioners for $15, and then you can sell, the list price is $25. Like, I just want to get the books out there. So whatever works for you. We've got a bunch of them now.
Julie, can you post a link to buy those somewhere?
Yes. What you should do is just send me an email and tell me how many you want, and then we'll just figure it out. Because it goes back to us no matter what. We send them to Amazon. We send them out from our website. So yeah.
Okay.
If you want them, just ask me for them. And that's true of any of my books.
Julie, would you be willing to send us that 4-page document you were scrolling through today?
Yes. I just have to make sure I've got everybody. Yeah. Can you quickly in the chats put your emails so that I can just scoop those up and then go send it out to? And I'll remember Cynthia, and I don't know if Cynthia's back with us. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, well, it's so fun to play in this arena. So I really appreciate your willingness and your attention on this, and then whatever you're doing with it out there, because it's this massive experiment. So you're basically testing this out in the world, and so we're gathering data, and it's fun to create this stuff because I see how easy it is to just create the next thing or to change it. So I'd love your input, your feedback about what you think works and what doesn't. Yeah. And we're back together again. I don't know, anybody look for the next date, next symposium? You can look now. Might not be till December.
I think is it November 20th?
Yes, it is. Good job. Thank you, sir. Oh, and a kitty. All right, everybody. Well, there's Shannon back. Hi, Shannon. All right. So see you again whenever we see you again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.